Virgo, hello, Amanda here. Welcome to the Unseen Hands Collective. This is going to be your April 2021 shift reading. We're looking at the shape you're shifting out of this month, the shape you're shifting into, and what that shape shift looks and feels like. Virgo, this is only the tarot portion of your April shift. We also offer you an astroscope and a guidebook to help you work through the April energy. So make sure you check those out, unseenhandscollective.com. The link is in the description. I would also encourage you to check out the April collective shift materials. Those are free in our free collective shift membership. So you can check that out as well, because it seems intimately tied to what is coming through in your reading, which doesn't surprise me because the collective shape we are shifting into in April is the Hermit. That is your card in the tarot. So the image that's coming to me is the Hermit standing and facing the winds. And the winds are blowing wildly all around you, whipping through you and around you. And that is very congruent with the April collective reading, which was like this force of nature coming through and clearing a path. And so then when I pulled your cards, it's that wind energy is showing up directly in a really beautiful way. I can't wait to show them to you. But first, I would be remiss as a former theater person if I did not read you a little bit of King Lear, as we are here talking about winds blowing with rage. So here we are, King Lear, Act 3, Scene 2, a little excerpt. Blow winds and crack your cheeks, rage, blow. You cataracts and hurricanos, spout till you have drenched our steeples, drowned the cocks. You sulphurous and thought-executing fires, vaunt couriers to oak-cleaving thunderbolts, singe my white head. And thou, all-shaking thunder, smite flat the thick rotundity of the world, crack nature's molds, and Germans spill at once that make ingrateful man. Crack nature's molds feels really important. Actually, this feels really tied to the Taurus reading I just did. Uranus in Taurus is the thunderbolt cracking the mold of the earth, cracking the rigidity of that Taurus earth energy. So fascinating, this energy. Okay, so here's your cards. We're using the Spolia Tarot this month. And the shape you're shifting out of is the 10 of Wands, and the shape you're shifting into is the 3 of Cups, right? So take heart, okay? You are putting down the heaviness, putting down a heavy weight, a heavy burden that perhaps you have been carrying, been holding, in favor of this whole other emotional space, which is one of connection and togetherness and emotional support. It's gorgeous, actually. And here's what your shapeshift looks and feels like. Are you as shocked as me to find the air card here? We shouldn't be shocked by these things anymore, right? But it shocks me every time. It's really amazing the way the cards tell the story. So we have the 8 of Cups, which is the Hermit, walking away from something in order to go on the Hermit journey. So here you are showing up again. And then of course the air element showing up, and then the Chariot. And with this, it's speaking in this way. These two energies, the 10 of Wands and the 8 of Cups, are both about putting something down or leaving something behind. And the 10 is the end of a cycle. It's like you can go no further in this way. You have to put it down. You have to leave it behind. Energies like that. And interestingly, both of these seem to be facing the past in this reading. And then we have the air energy right in the center, this like the winds blowing and this catalyst, this force of nature entering the scene and becoming a catalyst for movement and change. So here these energies are looking into the past, and these energies here are moving into the future. And there are winds blowing, the winds of change blowing at the center of this reading for you. And now I have to talk a little bit about Octavia Butler, because this energy, you know, parable of the sower, parable of the talents, the parable series, it's coming in really strong with this theme of the winds of change, because she says the only lasting truth is change. God is change. And Virgo, you are a seeker of truth. You are a seeker of God. That is the archetype of the hermit. And if the only lasting truth is change, then she is deducing that God must be change, or change must be God. Interesting. And then, so that's speaking to this larger force, the winds of change, aka God, aka the only lasting truth. And then she says, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you, which then to me asks you to find some form of recognition, or it's a moment of realization that you are change, because you have the power to enact change and then be changed by the change you touch. Does that make sense? All that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. So there's this like cycle happening of recognition. You're recognizing yourself in the winds. Recognizing yourself in the winds rather than fearing them. That's the shift. It's changing your relationship to change. So maybe part of what you are releasing or putting down or walking away from is an orientation to forces greater than you, or forces of change that is based in fear, that is based in an assumption that the forces of nature are always coming to get you, you know, or the forces of change are somehow like hunting you or here to cause trouble for you, or, you know, which then can create a story of fear, a narrative of fear. And maybe that, because these are facing the past, maybe that fear of change comes from a really deep place for you, a past tie, a tie to the past, or, you know, there's like questions coming up about like, when did you learn to be afraid of change? How did you learn to be afraid of change? You know, when I brought these cards to my cohorts, Kevin and Kelsey in the collective, one thing that really came through was about control, you know, and Kevin's been talking to Virgos about control in the astroscopes for a few months now, saying, you know, you can't control the forces unseen. You can't control the things outside of you, and that the desire to control things comes from a fear of change, and the fear of the unknown, and the fear that it's going to bring something awful. And I think this reading is really, and the reading last month is for you, Virgo, is really challenging that and asking you, reminding you that how you see determines what you see. And so change your perspective, you know, and that will change your relationship to your world, yourself, and these larger forces of change that may be blowing through here in April, because they seem to actually be moving you somewhere quite wonderful, towards togetherness, connection, emotional support, moving you on the clouds here to a more balanced and integrated space, a completely different emotional space, which is what happens when you put down the weight of fear and control. When you realize it is not your responsibility to control these forces, nor could you if you tried. Put it down, walk away, release into the winds. And that will take, that in and of itself, that relent, surrender to the winds will sweep you off to a completely different emotional experience. Virgo, this reading, okay, I can't wait to dive deeper into this now. So I'm going to take it into the extended reading where we'll use other decks and pull some cards and see if we can flesh this out. If you'd like to join me for that reading, you can click the link in the description to take you to our website, and you'll find the extended in the shop and in our monthly memberships. All right, Virgo, thanks for being here. Let it go. You know, like release the knots, release the grip. Let it go. The need to control, the ways, I mean, we could see this as like tying yourself up in knots. Tying yourself up in knots unnecessarily. You don't have to do it. Untangle the knots. Soften the glare. That feels so Virgo to me, is that like keen vision. I mean, Virgos have such analytical minds, and like, you know, we see everything. We see too much sometimes. But it's like, soften that glare. And I'm really seeing it as that, especially with this, the glare that is turned on yourself. Especially that glare. Because there's so much here about your emotional experience and your relationship to yourself. My goodness. Soften the glare. What if there's no problem to solve? This is a meditation that I got from Locke Kelly, meditation teacher. He does these glimpse practices. It's like a 2-minute thing, just like in the middle of your day, especially when perhaps you've got yourself worked up over something, or you're feeling those knots beginning to form again. And it's like, what if in this moment there is no problem to solve?
New foundation come up, because that's really what Pluto's asking. It's like, let that old foundation of all this detail and trying to create and trying to do things from a sense of trying to heal a flaw, or, you know, something not being right, something being imperfect. Like, no, you create out of joy. So Pluto in your 5th house is returning the joy in creation, the joy in making something. Okay, that's really what Pluto's doing for you this month, and asking you to step into that place. Because as the Sun and Venus cross the threshold from the 8th house to the 9th house, you're going to be in Taurus, and the 9th house is that alchemy of putting these two parts together.